Please describe your job title and primary duties.
When I worked at Shoney's, I did front of house, I did back of house. So what that means is I did serving, I ran the cash register, I also was responsible for bartending, which is the buffet. And I did this because I was at a point in my life to where I needed to work, roughly 40 hours, but with the restaurant industry, you typically don't get that. So I was able to diversify myself within that restaurant and basically be able to do almost everything. Serving is where I made primarily the most money, but bartending allowed me to basically get an extra 10 hours a week, which I could always count on to basically be like the backbone of my check if it was like a slow week. I also hosted. I also worked in the back of the kitchen for kitchen prep. They were talking about training me as a manager, and I kind of let that ambition go at that particular restaurant. It was something I didn't necessarily want, and at this time, I was still debating on whether or not I wanted to go back to college or not. So it was a transitional period in my life, and yeah, I did a little bit of everything there.
What was the work environment like?
At Shoney's, it was very friendly, very outgoing. A lot of the people there, most of them, were there to help you, very team-oriented. They had a pretty good employee retention rate. Most of the people you worked with were veterans, but there always was people coming in and out of the door, mostly for the kitchen aspect of it, because they didn't pay anything more than minimum wage, so it was hard to attract good quality people with that kind of wage they were offering, whereas the servers and the people in the front of the house, they tended to make more money. So those were the guys that stayed around longer, and those were the people who trained me. During my tenure there, I watched, I think, like 7 people go in and out, one of which was unexpected, but honestly, the working there is pretty nice. It was low stress, as with any restaurant, you'll get your moments to where you're pulling your hair out and you got 4 tables that all need drinks, but that's to be expected. Honestly, it was worth it. It was a good time when I worked there.
What was your favorite part about working there?
My favorite part was when I was a server and being able to make people happy. I believe when it comes to customer service that the whole idea behind it is to make the customer feel welcomed and to feel at home. Most of the people who came in there were repeat customers. Where I worked was the Dover, Ohio location, so somewhat of a smaller town. I began to become accustomed to these individuals and get to know them by their names and know particular dates and events that were happening in their lives, which allowed me to interact better with them and to provide them a better experience there at the restaurant. But it was a twofold thing. I also did that because I noticed that my tips would go up as well.
Please describe the application and interview process.
The application process that I went through when applying for Shoney's, I heard through the grapevine through a friend that they were hiring. So she told me to literally physically go over there and talk to the manager. They're a bit more, I would put it as old school. It was a paper application. I had an interview on the spot and got hired on the spot. So overall, very easy interview. It was a one-step interview. From my experience there, that didn't happen too often. Sometimes, most generally, they would do a 2-step interview where you would submit your application and resume, and then they would call you in for an interview. But if you're a person, it's a go-getter, and you show up and talk to them, chances are you're going to walk away with the job.
What questions did the interviewer ask during the job interview?
Okay, so they wanted to know if I had any previous experience working in a restaurant, and they also wanted to know what my abilities were with being able to communicate with individuals and provide customer service. Questions such as, do you know what safe food handling procedures are, and do you have reliable transportation? That's a big one. In that type of industry, they seem to really want you to be able to provide reliable transportation because they are dependent upon you to be able to show up for your shift to not short staff them, and that's a big thing in their application process. So they're always looking for that.
What set you apart from other candidates?
Personally, I am a bit of a go-getter. I can be a bit aggressive in the way that I communicate with individuals. I kind of just asserted myself when I was there, when I talked to them. And I had prior working experience in a restaurant. For any applicant, that would be a major bonus going into the process of interviewing for Shoney's, because it's the type of industry they are. So if you have relevant work experience, that's definitely going to help.
What other advice would you give to a job seeker looking to gain employment?
Okay, so for any job seeker looking for employment at Shoney's, make sure that you let them know that you're a punctual individual, that you're reliable. You need to be able to deal with high stress, because it's one of those jobs to where, at any given moment, it could be the flip of a hat and you're essentially running. It also has downtime. Weekend work is absolutely necessary with this type of employment at Shoney's. And I would say that you need to be comfortable with customer service and weekend work and evening shifts, because that's what you're primarily going to get.